Welcome to the Life on Your Terms podcast with me, your host, Tracey Liv Howard. My intention is that each episode helps you remember who you are and serves to inspire and support you to reach your most important goals and live life on your terms. Let's get into today's episode. In this episode, I want to talk about our journey from being location dependent, so having to work in a company, living in a city, and being really strapped to what our options were, to 3 years later being completely location independent as entrepreneurs and making money working from anywhere. So here's our journey. So I'm going to speed things up. A lot of you might know my story, but I met my husband, Christopher, in a pub in London when I was 29 years old. So I was living in Washington, D.C. I was working in corporate. Chris was working in corporate in London. And eventually, one of us had to raise our hands to say, hey, okay, let's make this relationship locationally working out for us. So I said, I'll quit my job. I sold my apartment in Washington, D.C., and I moved to London. Now, that was the first step actually in becoming location independent, was one of us became location independent. So I started to freelance online. I started working for a coaching and leadership company in the Middle East. And I eventually started my coaching business. I co-founded the business with Chris, my husband, and I started to make money working for myself. So it's really important to know that one person in a relationship, I am talking about marriage, that is ideal. Like getting one of you to be out of kind of the corporate system. If your dream is to be location independent and being able to live and work from anywhere, like start with one person. So we started with me, and we put a lot of energy into growing my coaching business. And so again, you know, I meet so many entrepreneurs that do not take the leap to like getting one person out of corporate because they're afraid to lose money or they're afraid for that like gap in time. But I will tell you that could be such a short period of like growing pains for extraordinary effing payouts later on. And I'm talking to a few people specifically. Please quit your job and you'll start becoming location independent. So I would say just one person. So that one person was me. I started to make $50K, and then my first year of like really going for it, I made $100K in my business. That was in 2018. Well, I got pregnant in 2018. I gave birth to our first son, Liam, in London in 2019. And the business was going well, meaning my coaching business. And we thought, Chris is working so many hours in London. He's not going to be around as a dad. I'm never going to see him again. And probably my business will suffer because I'm going to be juggling motherhood and the house and the scheduling and the sick days and like all the stuff that starts to happen when you become a parent. And he's going to be gone. So we made, and I'm telling you, this radical choice for Chris to quit corporate right after he gave birth to Liam. And you have to understand our psychology a little bit. So I coach people's inner life, their psychology, their motivations, their beliefs, their behaviors, their dreams, their goals. All of that is in the energy world. I coach on that because that's the most important for us to ultimately fulfill our destiny, to fulfill our potential, or to reach our goals, live life on our terms. We have to focus on what the plot is. Like, where are we going? And so Chris and I looked at reality and we thought, if we stay in this dynamic, great, Tracey's, an entrepreneur in business, but we've got a child. If Chris is working 12 hours a day with the London commute, it's going to be so out of whack. It's not going to work for us. This is not how we want to live our life. So we took a bet on the energy world that our dream, our beliefs, our capacity, our potential was going to be greater than the fear of losing money, the fear of Chris. We would lose half of our money and coming in just as we would bring in a child. But I will say that becoming location independent, especially if you and your partner or you as an individual are working and making money from like we call it the one system, corporate. You're just literally making money by showing up and someone else is paying you. If you're in that dynamic, You've got to create a bridge in order to make money in a different capacity. So one person I know right now, he works a 9 to 5, but he's day trading, and he's been doing day trading for 12 months, and he's starting to become profitable. So he's building this bridge between the money he's getting from that one system, which is kind of that corporate life, and building it to be like, wow, my day trading could probably like handle my expenses, So I'm all about thinking smart. But when I was making 100K, we were making 175K, 200K. So we had to deal with like the psychological loss of money, but we had to focus on, but what's the ultimate goal? What's the long-term goal, which was location independence, which was time freedom, which was financial independence. Like, we knew that the circumstances that we were in right now, if we didn't change them, our life wouldn't change. If we didn't take a bet on ourselves or take a risk in something, using that belief that we had, I would still be in London. Like, what? Like, no. Okay. So I'm sharing my story because there was such challenge in that experience, and yet it was so obvious to us. We were like, bye. So I gave birth to Liam, and then a week later, Chris quit his corporate job. So we became location independent, like kind of in that moment, although it didn't feel like it. And we started to work for ourselves, and we focused solely on the coaching business. Chris and I worked together. He does finance strategy. He's my right-hand man, and I did all the service delivery. And we just like teamed up as parents and as entrepreneurs to like build that bridge, make enough money to pay our bills to get us to where we want to be. And so that took 3 years to just get to that point where we like both quit corporate and then we were entrepreneurs. But of course, running a business, we could have become location dependent on London. So it could have been a mindset for us that we need to be in London to build a coaching business. We need to be in London for the networks, and focus solely on a very narrow way of thinking about how to work, how to live. And luckily, we were constantly thinking of, well, where do we want to live that's good for us? Like, if we could live from anywhere, what kind of house do we want? What kind of weather do we want? What kind of people do we want to be around? What does that lifestyle look like for us? Because that's like another degree of happiness. I forget the guy my husband follows, and he says, go where you're treated best. That's where you should live. Go where you're treated best. And I would add, go where you feel your best to his quote. Go where you feel best. So if we were stuck in a location where we were employed or in a mindset of being stuck, that we had to be in London, I would still be there. So fast forward, we moved to Germany because we didn't have to stay in London during the pandemic. We lowered our costs. We tried to increase our quality of life. I'm going to give it a big pause. And then we pivoted and thought, no, this is still not the location that we want to run our business, have our babies, like live our best life. And then we moved to a beautiful sunny island in the Caribbean. And we've been in Curacao. Google it. It's next to Aruba and Venezuela. We've been here for the last year and a half. And guys, I can't tell you how much at home I feel on this island. I love it here. I love driving here. I love the people here. I love everything, the mood, the vibe. They're just like, I can't even tell you, it's in the air. It's beautiful. And I'm so grateful to having become location independent with my husband and as entrepreneurs, and then sharing this vision and dream that, there's so much more to life than like a tiny little place that we live. Like, maybe the place that we are is not where we're meant to be. And where do we want to raise our kids? Where do we want to, how do we want to steal in our health? Like, I run on the ocean every day. I am always in the sun. I am literally, you could see me in December and I would be wearing a t-shirt. That for me is freedom. That for me is life on my terms. So location independence has a lot of stages. It also is very indicative of your mindset, your psychology, your inner life. So I would recommend working with someone on your beliefs, on your stories, on your goals, on your dreams, like really getting clear about that. And then, of course, if you're married to someone, aligning that with that person, because you're going to have to collaborate and coordinate with that individual in order to like also make them location independent and then live your best life. So I want you just to think about what this episode brought up for you, around location independence and around, honestly, the years and years and years it took for Chris and I to do it, which I felt like was quite rapid and fast. But in the end, it was just about being constantly in alignment and being in tune with what we really wanted and not allowing that fear or that doubt to get in the way, or even like money to get in the way from us to take the steps necessary to basically end up on a freaking Caribbean island living in paradise. Like, I don't think I would have believed myself 5 years ago if I said, hey, but here I am. I would think, how did you do that? But it started with being an entrepreneur, having the guts and courage to take that risk, and believing that something bigger was available for me. So I love you. Location independence, if that's something that you're aiming at, it is possible. Let's talk. Let's help you figure out how you're going to get there, not in terms of your strategy, but in terms of your interior. Your inner life is going to be the core that's going to get you there in the end. I love you. A big thank you for listening to this episode. I truly hope you got what you needed. If you want to get more from me each week, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any episodes or bonus content. To be notified of new episodes, workshop opportunities, and more, subscribe to my email list by heading to the link in this episode description. I'm wishing you joy, happiness, and love.